My prayers have changed lately.
Yeah.
Like personal life and everything. It's I don't know if it's like part of the sanctification, but it's like I'm getting more things to think about, more ways to open things, and I don't know. I'm just really enjoying it. But,
I didn't know if you meant in a good way, bad way.
oh yeah. No, I think it's better. It's like they're getting more personal. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like not even just like in the corporate church prayer, but like in my individual talking to God prayers, they're getting. And I don't know if it's like changing because of situations in my life or personal growth or because of the prayers that I'm reading, and I'm like, it's it is the way to go for it. Welcome to Blessing Cursing Podcast. We're starting early today because we're not having service tonight, and it just makes economic sense
It does.
to do it now instead of driving back and forth. So, welcome. We appreciate you being here today. If you would like to go back and watch my Morning Thoughts episode, it ties in really well to this morning's service on the Sugar Grove page. If you wanted to see how those two kind of link together, I think they're nice. But then again, I did it, so maybe a little bit biased. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on there. You are here in time, Jamie. Glad to have you here. You would probably like today's service as well, pretty well. Don't know where I was going with that. I was going to say something, but I've lost it. So, how have you been?
That happens. Very busy at work.
Yeah.
Not busy at home because it's been raining and nasty and muddy. But so I've give the homework a break and been very busy at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Getting ready for the holiday season.
So speaking of that, I guess
We can.
you can.
Yeah. So
Go ahead. I'll allow you the honors.
So I am getting a new job. Bathfitter has been very, very great to me for almost 4 years. It would have been 4 years in January. But of all the things Bathfitter can do, the one thing that they were not able to do for me is to give me time. And that's really been the biggest driving factor in it. So several people that we've had here are fixing to be coworkers because you have kind of got my foot in the door to come work with you.
I think it was more the boss than me. Well, I mean, of course it was more the boss, but
Sure.
I mean, I just mentioned it, and then when he came, we're talking about Scott Clark, and when he came on the podcast and met you, and then you guys talked after the podcast, he was like, man, well, how come you didn't tell me about this guy earlier? And I'm like, what? And so anyway, he likes you. The guys like you when you come to work. Eat a few meals with us. And,
Seemed to be a pretty good little group there.
Yeah.
But kind of, I want to, since we're talking about that, we can kind of do the provenance tracing that we've done a few times because I think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
But so starting the first full week of December there, I will be in a new career path. And what I'm very excited about and what really keeps driving home to me is right now I'm not able to meet with anybody for pastoral things outside of the standard time. And even with Wednesdays, I've asked Walter to pick that up in case I can't make it because, for a long time it was I'd be calling you an hour beforehand, yes or no. And
Right.
that's really no way to have a structure. But this allows me, even if some days I'm working more hours, I can guarantee and say, hey, if you want to meet, I can meet you at, say, 6 o'clock.
You will know at least a month ahead of time when you're working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's really a great freedom. Not to mention the cherry on top of 25 minutes driveway to parking spot. We'll never be able to beat that. So if any of the Bathfitter families on here, I really appreciate all the years you guys have given me. I still consider you great friends, and I'd love to still be able to meet when we can. The one thing we all share in common is every single person on the installer team golfs. Every single one of them. And so all the guys that have already left go golfing all the time. So I was like, hey, we'll swing in there. We'll make it happen.
You'll meet a lot of golfers here too.
Yeah. Well, I've stopped golfing. So it's
Well, I like to go to that new thing where you
Top Golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You play part. I guess it's you hit a real ball, but it's electronic or something?
So it's basically a huge driving range, and they have it's a ball tracer, and it will show like as soon as you swing,
So it's a real ball?
yeah, on the screen it'll show the path that it takes, how fast it was spinning, the
Really?
distance, every bit of it. And I think at night they have like on the driving range they'll have like lights, and like if you landed in there you get points for scoring stuff.
Huh.
Not been there, so don't
Yeah.
quote me on that. But so let's do some Providence tracing.
Okay.
And I think that this is a good practice for everybody to do in their lives to kind of reiterate that God is still in control and on this path. So it was in, I want to say June or July when you first brought the idea to me.
Long time ago.
Tells you how long I've been working on this and praying about it. And
Now we're talking about Providence, so how long God's been working on it.
right. Well, as far as we were involved, though, that's the thing about Providence. God knew from the beginning, but you've got to play catch up.
Yeah.
And so you were like, hey, this job opportunity, I think you'd probably like it. Why don't you put in?
Mhm.
And so I applied for it, and then I was like, so what do you think the chances are? And you said, oh, you don't have a chance. And you were just outright. And when you said that, I was like, why would I put the effort in there for it? And you said, no, it'll be like a act of God for you to get this job. And
I wasn't kidding.
no, you weren't. I had no relevant experience, and they required 5 years minimum. I had no degree, and they required a minimum of a degree. There was a lot of things that I just simply did not have.
Mhm.
And we put that in there, and it was kind of like silence. And I was like, it's not the first application I put
Yeah.
in, didn't hear anything from it. And then when Scott came on here, you had kind of already talked to him a little bit and put my name in there, and he actually told me that he never saw my application in the first run through because it didn't even make it through the screening.
Mhm.
And
And it shouldn't have.
no, I fully get
Yeah.
that. And he said that he actually had to ask and look through it. And he said, like, looking at it, I think that you do have somewhat relevant experience. You just did really not get that through on your resume. And I was like, I don't know how to do it any better. So I was able to talk with him a little bit, and I guess he did take a liking to me. And we kind of worked from there, and then it kept going, and it was like, confirmed, you've got it.
Mhm.
And it was, at one point, it was riding on the interview. And I think he was more nervous than I was. I was nervous, and it was like, listen, you need to be calm about it, but you got to do really good. And I
Yes.
was like, okay. So we got through the interview and had, I want to say 9 people. It was a bit asking me questions, and
It's not a small process.
no, and it's a serious thing too, and that's what I mean. I really was feeling, and I told them this whenever I walked in there, like right off the bat. I'd only talked to a few of them before, and the rest of them were completely new. I was like, I gotta tell you guys, for as intimidating of a situation as this is the least intimidating situation I think I've ever been in. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, this doesn't feel like I'm being asked by several government employees about my history.
Mhm.
So this just feels like a bunch of people talking. And they're like, well, good, that's what we want. And I was like, just letting you know the scare tactics, if that's what you're going for, doesn't work.
They're not working.
Got through that, and I've had this conflict the whole time of I genuinely do care for the people that I work with now,
Mhm.
and I want to be friends with them. I want to kind of give them the heads up, but I didn't want to be the guy in July that was like, hey, I've applied for another job, and then for the next 6 months, nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Yeah, because with a government job, it takes forever.
Yeah.
It took 6 months for me from the day I applied to the day I started.
Yeah. And so going forward in that, and I would hear, okay, have the job. Great. When do I start? And then I'd get an email that
Probably sometime this year.
Yeah, I get, even then I wasn't sure. I get an email and it was, we need this, this, and this. Send this. Okay, well, we need this. Send this. Well, we need this. Well, we couldn't reach your contact.
Mhm.
It has to be that same contact. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay. So I'd have to call around. So finally we get it, and I get to go to the tour, the last time that I was there.
Mhm.
And I actually got to see some things I didn't get to see before and talk to some people and meet. And then I get my physical done, find out I'm partially deaf and have no depth perception, which was just cool to find out.
Awesome for a podcast host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that thing ever starts buzzing, I'll never hear
Yeah.
it. And then we get the start date. And, so God has been in everything. And every single job that I've had, this being the fourth and praying to God that's the final,
Me too.
has been absolutely because God has put me there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've not met qualifications, because I've been able to build up while I'm there, but the starting I never had that. And it was because, my dad worked at the concrete plant I got there. It's because he knew the manager at Wendy's I worked there. It's because of Laura that I got to Bath Fitter. It's because of you that I got here. So God has always been putting people there to put me where I need to be for the time that he needs me there. And the last 3 jobs, I've thought that was my retirement. And I'm hoping for this one too. So I get the email of, here's your start date. And the first thing that I want to do is tell my current boss, hey, this is it. Give you 3 weeks notice. But he's not there. And he's not going to be there until like Friday. And the anxiety was building up in me, and I was just stressing out. I could not. So I was like, what's more professional, an email or a phone call? It was deemed phone call. So I gave him a call, and I was like, hey, listen, I want you to know right off the bat, this isn't because of like disgruntlement. This isn't, every company's got room to improve, but this isn't like I hate you, I'm out of here kind of thing. And this isn't because of lack of work, because again, this started back in July.
Right.
This is strictly because this is the best move for me, for my family.
Yeah.
And as much as Bath Fitter is willing to try, they will never be able to give me that.
No.
Because I can't install a tub in a time at a place that will give me the same schedule.
Right.
And that's really what it boils down for. Not to mention the extra benefits.
Yes.
And so we talked about that, and you can hear disappointment.
Sure.
Completely understand. And seeing some of the guys at work, they were excited for the opportunity, and then some of them seemed genuinely hurt. And what really hurt me was one of the coworkers had asked me like the very week before, are you planning on leaving? And again, if I knew if it was going to be this year, I would have told him, but I didn't know.
Right.
And so once he found out, he was like, I just asked you, why didn't you tell me then? And I tried to explain that, and like I can see that little bit of sorrow.
Sure.
And I feel for that and understand that. And I like the guy, want to do the best for him, but that's something that I've been kind of working with. And
some people see holding back truth as lying.
Yeah.
I don't, but my dad thought that if it was the truth, it's okay to say it.
Sure.
And so by watching him, and I've done that a lot, and I've heard a lot of people by saying something that's true, but it would hurt people.
Yeah.
And so the people that it could have hurt for you would be your family. If you had said the truth and it got out, and then they went ahead and let you go or cut off your work or whatever, then that's going to hurt you and your family.
Yeah.
And so you're just holding back truth. It's not that you're lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they let me go at a 2 weeks notice, which they're not, that's again, it's a professional business here.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that everybody has to be.
Yeah.
If they had let me go at 2 weeks, we can scrape by for 2 weeks.
You can make that, but
6 months you can't. I don't have that kind of a savings plan going. And besides that, even if they didn't let me go, my anxiety of because I hate people asking me questions that I then have to ask somebody the answer for.
Yeah.
Which you saw that in the hiring process there for July, August, September, October. I could not deal with the.
It's stressful.
You sure you got the job?
Yeah.
Are you going to get when are you starting? Yeah, you don't really I couldn't deal with that.
Yeah.
So this was the best option for me there.
It was stressful for me too. I think in one of our little text things or something, I'm like, man, they're driving me nuts, you know. And you're not meaning to.
Yeah.
You're just stressed out. But
well, I told
it's also stressful for me also.
Yeah. Well, I told Scott, I was like, if I'd known this, I'd been talking to you the whole time because I would get asked from somebody in the family,
Here's
and
Scott's
then I'd be
number.
like,
Call
I don't
him.
know, and they'd be like, this doesn't seem right. I would check on this, and it's like, who do I check on this with? So then we're having to go on that chain. But God has found it. He's worked it out, and He's made this path, and I'll be starting in December. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yes.
And for what that's going to allow. Because again, I want to meet with people. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I don't even think legally consider myself a counselor, but I can counsel biblically.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not like, oh, this is like a side job now, I can do this. I see people that need help,
Mm-hmm.
want help, and have asked me, and up until now, I've had to say the best I can do is a text message, or the best I can do is an email or a phone
Right.
call every once in a while. This will be, you need help, Tuesday, meet me, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
You need help
I
next
know
Tuesday?
when I'm gonna get off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I can't pass up.
Right.
And I think this is really God blessing the ministry as well,
Mhm.
and giving me that opportunity.
Well, He don't bless us for us.
Right.
Yeah, we've got that completely wrong in America.
Yeah.
That He blesses us for us, or He owes us something, or it's still His. Like I say, Christ is not His last name.
Right.
Christ is the mission.
Yeah.
And so, if we are on the Christ mission, then He does things in our lives, or attempts to draw us in different areas for His glory and His mission and the Christ mission.
Yeah.
And so, if we are resurrected with Christ, then we are resurrected into that work of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Also, not only are we a new creature, not only are we our old man has died and all that, but we're also resurrected into, because that's what the Messiah was, this person that is immortal, that is God, that is all these things. And so we get resurrected with Christ, we become part of His history, and we're resurrected into the work of Christ.
Yes.
And that work of Christ is not just for Jesus.
Yeah.
It's for all of us. I know that sounds funny, and I know that some people probably say he's blaspheming or whatever,
Sure.
but study it. It's it's not his last name. It's a title, and the title is for the work of Christ, which He performed, but we spread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And He continues to do through us.
through us.
And that's
He said
really,
these things you'll do and more.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we hit on earlier whenever we were kind of talking behind the camera of like how sometimes it's very clear what people say whenever they're like, God has to work through you, and you just have to like let it go and trust
Mhm.
God. Like sometimes that's like, that doesn't work for me. I don't understand that. But then other times it's like, oh, this is what is meant by that. And
Yeah.
this is Him speaking through me. This is what that's
Mhm.
like. And the mission that He has for us, I think it looks different.
Sure.
Because again, we look different, we act different, we speak different.
Mhm.
And I was talking to Larry.
We're not perfect.
Are you sure? I was talking to Larry over the week, and we had mentioned something about, we were studying something, and he was like, I think that it's truly a gift that you can study things like that and it not affect your like relationship with God. It not like concern you or throw you off kilter. He said, I don't think that I could do that, or I don't think that everybody could do that. And I was like, I don't know that they should.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think that is one thing that He has blessed me with, is that ability for that. But then I look at other people and I'm like, man, why can't I do this?
Yes.
Well, that's not my purpose. That's
Right.
not my plan.
Mhm.
So the mission statement is completely the same for everybody.
Absolutely.
But the way that we accomplish that task,
Or what
looks
part
different.
of the task is ours.
Yeah, that's it. And you've still been amazing. You do the best you can with what you have. You are so obedient. God notice you deserve this opportunity. Jamie, I appreciate you saying that. You are one of the people that I feel that I have to let down because I can't. Yeah, I don't have that time. Of course, I can't say, hey, I'll meet you here at 6, because it'd be kind of long for you to drive. But this will definitely free me up to have a little bit more breathing room, and that's definitely God blessing us for that. I'm just excited for it.
Mhm.
And I'm excited for what He's, I was talking there at the beginning about how my prayers have changed. And there's a whole lot of change that's happening here lately in study and insight and every bit of it. And, just like what we're reading today, I just wanted to do a dichotomy of Job in grief and Christ in grief.
Mhm.
And it evolved into something different in the middle of that, which
Yes.
I love, and I'm thankful for it. And I think that the comparison of the two is still apt, but the change that went with that and the insight that only comes from study for me. I do think that God gives me a lot. I mean, in the moment, but I think that it's this evolving branch of because I've studied here.
Sure.
It's kind of like as you're learning to read and you know, say, 1,000 words. Well, whenever you learn 2,000 words, you speak differently because you now know 2,000 words.
Absolutely.
And like with biblical and spiritual history and stuff like that, the broader sweep that you know of things, the more that those little things in the New Testament make sense and line up. And that's really helping me in my relationship and growing with that. And that's another thing with this. I can schedule like a study time now. And it's not like, oh man, I'm too tired whenever I get home. I'm just going to shower and go to bed. Because I do that a lot.
There'll be very few times you're going to be too tired. Yeah, you're working for the government now. So.
One of the things that I keep hearing that is confusing and concerning is don't get burnt out from not feeling like you've worked.
Yes.
And I've been told for maybe a month or more.
You think it's impossible?
Yeah.
But it's not.
See, that's such a foreign concept to me.
It is. So I came from working contract jobs, all these contractor jobs for the government. And so that's different because when you're a contractor or you're working for a private contractor that works for the government, you got to work. It's like a normal job for the most part. Except for every time the government changes, you're afraid of losing your job. But other than that, it's pretty normal.
Sure.
So, but with working at the lab for a national laboratory, it is always like slow and the kiltle, and you get to where you're like, am I doing enough? Am I supposed to be? I need to be doing this and everything. And like the one guy at work, Ray, I'm all the time, every time he walks by me, everywhere I see him, I'm like, slow down, Ray, slow down. And he laughs, but I can tell that he's a little bit older than me, and I can tell that all of his life he's had to really get it, for his job. And that's just not how we operate.
Yeah.
We do things slow, methodical. Everything is thought about. Everything is run through a board of people, and you may come up with some idea, and then a month or two later you may implement it.
Yeah.
It's not like where it's your job, you call the boss and say, hey, this is not right, what do we want to do? Y'all may talk to 2 or 3 people, and in 5 minutes you've got to move forward.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen.
And that's such a foreign concept.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's harder for your brain to grasp that than you think it is.
Yeah. So I've heard that, and I've heard basically for the first 2 months I'm going to feel unaccomplished and everything because of what I'm used to.
All you're going to be doing is training.
And you'll
be training until the first of the year.
Oh yeah, I expect that. I came from at the concrete plant. It was here's your schedule, leave when it's done. But with quality control, it was you've got before, during, and after work involved with that as well. And it wasn't uncommon for me to be 12 plus hours a day.
Right.
And then when I went to, and this was the coolest part that I did actually enjoy, when we would slow down and we'd go back to a regular 8-hour day, we would feel like we had a vacation.
Yeah.
And I got in that mentality, and so then going to Bath Fitter, it was here's the job, leave when you're done. And then drive home however far you got to drive home. And some days when you're knocking it out of the park and everything's going right, you're home by 2 o'clock with no worries. And then other days you're home at 10, with great worries. But it's always been a leave when you're finished, not leave when time is up kind of thing. And so that's going to be, I think, the biggest adjustment for me. From what Scott even said, there could be a time where you're in the middle or, have a change or something like that. And he said when the time's up, if you really want to, you can, but you can just leave. That's going to be weird.
Yeah, you keep your own time.
Yeah.
You just write it down. How many hours you worked, what time you came in, what time you left. That's a foreign concept for a lot of people too. is the trust that they have in you to keep up with your time.
Yeah.
The flip side of that coin is one of the only ways that you can get fired from the lab
Is
falsifying your time.
Yeah.
If they catch you falsifying your time, like they see you, there's cameras everywhere, and you said you stayed all day and you left at noon and didn't come back,
that's a problem.
you won't come back.
Yeah.
You
And
don't get a second choice.
Yeah.
Chance.
I fully get that.
Yeah, because they're so trusting, and they're you know, they will fire you on the spot for that.
Well, the position requires integrity and morals
It does.
because of the nature of the beast.
Yes.
And so if you're willing to falsify on something like this, what else
What
are
else
you
are
going
you
to
gonna do?
Yeah. I've also had to get in the habit. So the very first thing I got when I've told everybody is, oh, going to, work at ORNL. And they say, what are you doing at the bank? And I'm like, think bigger.
not the credit union.
Yeah.
Which we have one.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Then like, think bigger. And then it's, so what are you doing?
Yeah.
If I knew, I couldn't tell you,
Can't
kind of
tell.
thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been going for. And so they're like, so they're going to do like tests on you. And I was like, I hope not. I was like, I think that's the.
Well, we always laugh, and we're like, depending on what isotope we're working with, and we're like, oh man, we're going to be watching TV, when we're like 60, and they're going to say, in the early 2000s, did you work with blah blah blah? If so, call this number.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my grandkids are going to get through college because of that. But I'm absolutely thrilled for it. And I've got the opportunity to meet several of the guys on here and at the lunches and stuff, and seems like a real great crew.
Oh yeah.
And seems
we
like
believe the best in the lab.
It seems, and I don't, like I said the last time we had lunch after my physical, I don't think I have ever laughed that hard in like a work setting.
Yes.
So
Tyler's a nut.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Tyler, if you ever watch this, you're a nut.
I'm excited to work with you. But that's really what. So this week is Thanksgiving, and so if you're listening to this on audio, last week was Thanksgiving. Hope you had a good one.
Yes.
And we were kind of going through, and I told her, I said, there's going to be like a weird time period between checks. So I was like, I'm not saying like rice and beans.
Yeah.
But let's make a budget. So I sat down at the computer and was like, Monday, this is what I would like to eat. Here's what we have. Here's what we need. So that we were doing the bare minimum. And then I was like,
no more liquid death.
no, that's accounted in there.
Is that on the budget?
It's pretty affordable. If you get it like on the Amazon, like
yeah, like that. Yeah, at the store it's high.
No, it's less than $1 a can.
Oh, okay.
On Amazon, which is the only way I would do that.
Yeah,
because it cuts
it's
out.
Expensive.
It's cheaper than buying Pepsis and stuff.
Yeah,
and healthier for you. So I sat down and did all that, and then I was like, it's Thanksgiving. And I was like we're bringing stuff to houses, we're doing stuff. And she was like, we're going to Kevin's, and we're like bringing corn. And I was like, that's easy. We'll just open a couple cans of corn, toss some butter in, heat it up, there you go, corn's done.
Yep.
And I was like, a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I was like, what are we doing for Mom and Dad's? And we're keeping Mom and Dad's Thanksgiving very small. It's liquid death is carbonated water. I keep
Good
hearing,
question.
Yeah, it is. It's usually what I drink here. I ran out today. It's just carbonated water. Some of it's flavored, some of it's not. It's just my preferred brand. If you drink a lot of water, water tastes different. It's my favorite flavor. But for Mom and Dad's Thanksgiving, for that side of the family, we're kind of keeping it small because, again, Dad's treatments, he can't really move around a lot. Mom and Dad's house is small to get a lot of people, and his immune system.
Well, I was gonna say, that was what I was thinking. You don't need everybody and his brother there bringing in every sniffle they got.
It's all trying to accommodate.
Yeah.
And we are stepping up more this year than we have in the past, because usually I'm like, we'll bring cups and stuff. We'll be the drink people. But this year we were like, we'll get potatoes. And at the same time, she was like, we'll get mac and cheese. And then Mom was like, well, who's going to do stuffing? And I was like, I can do that too. And then it's like, we're going to make pies and cakes, and we're loading all this stuff down. And I was like, oh, no, that's not going to work in the budget. We were $20 over budget, and we still got all that.
Yeah.
And so I do and I don't worry about finances. I don't worry in the sense of I know we'll be taken care of, but I do worry in the we are called to be reasonable, good stewards,
Absolutely.
and I don't want to just squander. So I try and plan things out. Uh, just remind me because I will absolutely forget. So I don't try and squander things. So I try and stick to a reasonable budget with variable breathing room in there. And when I saw that, I was like, we're going to blow it out. We are going to be rice and beans by the end of it. But we got everything, like I said, maybe $20 over for that. And that's like regular food and Thanksgiving food for the rest of the week. So it's really comforting in those moments when God is able to, even in those small things, to be like, no, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Because you forget on those small things, I feel. At least I do. I forget that, like, God's not just in control of, like, life and death, but, like, He's in control of if you're going to be able to make this, if you're going to be able to do this. He's in control of the little things, too. And
You're talking about your prayers changing. It made me think of probably for about 2 or 3 months now. In the mornings when I wake up, I open my eyes, I see. I thank Him for that. I thank Him for waking me up. I thank Him for seeing. If I step up on the side of the bed and I can stand, I thank Him for, being able to walk. And so I've been doing that for a while now, and it humbles you to the point to where anything that you can do, it's like how's that saying go? If you only had tomorrow what you thanked Him for yesterday, what would you have?
yeah.
And the little things would eat you alive, because all those things that you didn't thank Him for, you wouldn't have, and where would you be?
All the things you take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, again, you go through seasons in your life and you change. And I got to say, that's like my least favorite thing that Christians do, talking. I'm just in a season of this or that.
Yeah.
But you do.
It's real.
It is.
Yeah.
I just don't, it just feels so weird saying that. But, we look at, like, people that we know that are in, like, health concerns and stuff, and we're like, I bet that if we were in their shoes, we would think differently.
Sure.
Like, wake up in the morning, I told you I just, hopped up the stairs here, and I was like, my knees aren't, like, springing. like, like, they're slow. Like, I couldn't run if I wanted to. And I was like, well, thinking now, like, at least I can still hop up and down stairs.
Yeah. You notice I didn't comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no spring in my step.
But part of that too is also I've been more devoted to actually studying, and so I built my little, like, it's a lectern, if you want to say that. It's something to keep my, like, study material off of an oily desk.
Yeah.
Is all it is. And I've used that, and I've been able to go out there, and I ran out of propane. So I was out there studying a few nights ago, and I was, like, writing, kind of, whatever, because journaling is something we're going to talk about, because I think that everyone needs to start. But that's a different story. So I was out there working with it, and the lantern started fizzling, and I was like, my heat's going, and now my light's going. So I quickly grabbed a candle that I had and, like, lit it so I could finish, and I finished up what I was going through there. But I realized that I was going out there to spend alone time, to kind of focus, meditate, what have you, but I was only doing work. I was working on hammers, sharpening axes, cleaning up, organizing, whatever, and I was putting no conscious effort to God. So I built that in the idea of now, I can still work on hammers, I can still clean, do all that stuff, but now I can also take 20 minutes and read a couple verses. I can do something to kind of initiate a little bit more study time, so I'm spending more time in study. And that's changing because I'm grateful that we have that. I'm grateful that I have all these resources to be able to study different aspects of God from different viewpoints, from different thoughts, different translations, different languages.
You're going to be in a big transition, because you'll have new people, new friends, new coworkers, new burdens.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Because a lot of people, and I don't care if y'all are watching, I have a lot of people at work that I have a burden for. and I'm sure that some of those burdens will transfer with you also. And because we see these people, we work with them, 40 hours a week, and the gospel of Christ, the Christ in me, is burden for them, and so that will be different. Your hours will be different. The amount of time that you have, your peace of mind should be different. Your family life should be different. Your ministry should be different. You're going through a huge change.
Yeah.
And so anybody in your life is going to have to realize that your life is changing drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel a different type of freedom already, which I think anytime you're leaving one job going to another, there is that level of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels different than the last time, because last time it was leaving because there were bills.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't leaving for money, it's leaving for a better reason. You know what I'm saying? So it feels differently in that. But I'm interested in, and what I really like to do is after like a year, get some of those people back so that we can have like a full year comparison
Yes.
of this is how Philip approaches things, this is how Austin's approaching things.
Yes.
And not to say like, oh, who's doing better, but
Sure.
to show from an outside perspective how different people approach ministry.
Absolutely.
Because I've always thought that was wild, how people respond to things differently, people act differently. Some people are more receptive to not. There may be people you've talked to that are just like and then whenever I'm able to,
Yes.
it may come off completely differently and work.
I hope.
And I'm interested in the ones that aren't believers.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Like, how exactly aren't you believing? What is it that you do believe, if anything? What's your philosophy on life?
Yes.
I don't want to do the typical of like, how'd we get here? How are we leaving? Sure, that works, but for me, it's not how do we get here? How are we leaving? It's what are you doing right now and what.
You're making fun of Dean.
No. That's
That's the
a
first thing I thought of when you said that.
no. That's not even a good Dean impression.
No, Dean says, "Who is Jesus to you?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
which I think's awesome.
I want to know, like, what is your driving philosophy? Because in my mind, with Christ as that driving force, even before that, there was some idea of there being a deity out there.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, I don't know what I would have to drive for. I don't know outside of just fulfilling whatever lustful desires I have. I don't know what my life would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very curious on people that are agnostic, atheist, or in a different religion, what drives them and what their motivation for being a morally good person is.
A lot of times, I think it's just life. Like the one guy at work was the same guy I holler at every day. Like he was saying, he was talking to a Baptist preacher, and he was like, "Well, if you were born in another country, what religion do you think you'd be?" And he's like, "Baptist." And he's like, "But the whole country that I told you, is Catholic." And he's like, "Yeah, but I'd be Baptist." And he's like, "I can't talk to this guy."
That is such an absurd thought.
Yeah. So, anyway, my point of that is the same point that he was trying to make to that Baptist preacher, that a lot of times I think it's what country you're born in, who your parents are, what kind of life you're raised up in,
Your environment.
yeah, your friends, yeah, in short, your environment. Yeah.
And so, following on that path, that's not to say that you wouldn't still be a follower of Christ, but you might not be that flavor follower of Christ.
What'd she say?
I want that to be a series, like interviews with the unreligious would be so interesting.
Yes.
The problem is getting the unreligious to come on here and talk to us.
Yeah, in a serious manner, like
Yeah.
Steve did. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm for you with that. And I'm interested in different denominational beliefs and stuff too.
Sure.
But let's
the trying to find people that I do reach out to different people, but trying to find someone that I guess you could say I will allow to come on here.
yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
because I know whether they're coming on to be argumentative or if they're actually coming on to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Steve was excellent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
excellent.
I'm more than willing to have a healthy, respectful debate,
Sure.
which is different than an argument.
Way different
And
than argument.
so that's where we come from. So, like, we don't. Our friend that the Black Hebrew Israelite.
Yes.
That was argument for the sake of argument.
Absolutely.
And that's not something that because that's not going to do anybody good.
No.
Now, if they wanted to come on, let's say, and like, here's my side, here's your side, let's
Sure.
work that out. We'll have that all day.
Mm-hmm.
So that I do understand that, and there are some people out there that would come on here just to be cruel, spiteful, whatever they want to do. And yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I'm not into argumentative conversation.
Yeah.
I'm into conversation, or we wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm not into arguing.
Yeah. What's really upsetting to me is there are people that I know right now that would be willing to have a conversation like that we're looking at, but their specific group wouldn't talk to them anymore.
Oh yeah, they would be
Ostracized.
ostracized.
Yeah. And so I think about that, and I think of
Austin would get them ostracized.
Yeah, they'd be Austin-sized.
Austin-sized.
I think about how
Big.
I try and look at other people's perspective too, and I understand, like, let's say from a Jehovah Witness perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, hey, come on here and talk about this. It is, from their point of view, make this decision to have a conversation with people that don't believe in me, and at the same time turn my back on the people that I know and love and everything that I am for.
Yeah.
And so, I ask you in the same manner, would you be willing to turn your back on everything you believed in everybody for something that you don't have faith in right now?
Right.
The answer is a hard no. I'm not going to do it. And so I think that sometimes I myself and other people we've talked to don't see that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that's not what we believe. So it's just, oh, that's foolishness. Why don't you just come talk to us about that? To them, that's their core belief.
That's what I'm talking about. Those are the people that will not have on, is the people that cannot look at other people's perspective.
Yes.
If they're singular in perspective, I'm not talking about singular in belief or singular in their walk, or all those things are good. I'm talking about singular in mentality, that they cannot see other people's point of view.
Yes.
And if that's you, I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask you on.
Even if we agree, we can't have a conversation.
Even if we agree. Yeah.
I'm so interested in other societies and cultures, and like religions and denominations are in the exact same boat for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I think it's accurate or not, I still want to know about it.
Sure.
Because it's something that drives you. It's something that you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope and pray that in that somehow Christ can be revealed and we can have that moment. But at the very least, I want your perspective so I know what you're thinking coming from on that. And so, there's people you've talked about that are Catholic or previous Catholic or thought about being Catholic, or, all over the place with these different places. And
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Let's have that conversation. I remember
Sure.
I had a substitute teacher in school. Her son was in my grade too, but she was Catholic, and we were talking about the Bible or something one day. She was super awesome. Miss Palco was great, and she was like, "Yeah, our Bible has books yours doesn't have." That's the first I ever heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Yeah, Protestants removed a whole bunch of them," and I was like, "Name one." She's like, "Maccabees," and I was like coal. And so that was my mindset. But she was so cool because she wasn't like, Protestants are so stupid. She was like, yeah, we got different books.
Uh-huh.
That's as far as, she wanted, of course, with the school, as far as she could take it.
Sure.
But that was her mentality behind that. And like, I love having those conversations with people. Because if you can look at me and say, okay, you believe differently, here's where we're at. That's humanity at its best right there.
What's she say? You had to read it off for the people that can't see.
Jamie said, I would love to see the podcast go global, like a mission trip with conversations with people from all over. Oh, the ideas. I think that would be really cool, but
We thought about that early on. We even have a banner, and we have done some outside stuff.
I
Yeah.
also need to stress the fact that I've never been outside of the United States, and the idea terrifies me. I don't think that we As of right now, I don't think we'd go set up in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah,
And,
we've barely hit some parks around the area.
but it would be a great idea.
Yeah,
Right.
and we had that idea way early on
Yeah.
to set up a thing, and our banner says "Come podcast with us,"
Yeah.
and we've had that, and we have the technology that works partially and partially doesn't. We just never could figure out what to do with the dead space between.
Yeah. And so because we do everything live, that's where if we wanted to take and break down and edit, we could.
We could.
But we also have to, with stuff like that, that's not like scheduled, it's, you don't know who you're going to get, and you don't know if it's going to turn from a debate to an argument.
I would definitely not do it live.
No.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not something that we can say, okay, we're going to go sit for 2 hours,
Yeah.
because that may just be one person out of 5 we talk to.
Or nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be probably the best worst case scenario is that nobody comes and we just sit there and talk and look at squirrels.
I understand your heart, Jamie, and we have thought about it, and it's just so it's just difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, in so many different aspects.
Yeah. But yeah, I would absolutely love, for the majority of it, it has been testimonies of people coming to Christ with very few, differing in there.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get anybody willing to have a conversation about whatever they believe.
Yes.
And, just like with Steve, not in an attempt of like, let's get you here, let's corner you, let's convert you, but like, tell us your experience with Christians so that we can learn better.
Yeah.
But again, there's groups out there, completely understand. There's groups out there that would be willing, and then there's groups out there that would not be willing for someone to do that.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the struggle.
Yes.
But, God will provide,
Correct.
and He'll see the path wherever it is. You always hear, like, when God closes a door, He opens up another one, and I don't really like that because it's not like God.
Oh yeah, do pray.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ask Jesus about it?
Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much.
Now, Jamie, before you said that, did you talk to Jesus about that first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
we can't stand that type of.
I'm glad you understand me on that,
Yeah.
too. Because that's nothing.
But you prayed, right?
Yeah, you better
Yeah.
believe I have. To fill you guys in on that little joke, I talked today, and I have talked at time, is... I think I know what you're talking about. I feel like I know exactly who you're talking about, and we'll have to talk about it. Because I think I pick up, she's saying she's got a very specific person she wants on the podcast, but she's afraid it may be for the wrong reasons. But the reason Philip was doing the joke about the have you prayed about that is I've talked about it before. We talked about it today in service, and we talk about it within the group. But the worst thing that a person can do as far as giving like good Christian advice is so that just confirms it is to just give the well, have you prayed about it?
Yeah.
Or you just gotta trust, man.
Yeah.
You just gotta believe.
You ain't trusting in Jesus.
Yeah. You just don't believe
Yeah.
enough. That's all it is. And it's
Who sinned? You
oh my gosh.
or your parents?
So, for example, let's say that I approached you saying that I was really struggling with depression, and it was really starting to give me like bad thoughts, and you were like, "Well, have you prayed about it?" My first immediate thought, because this has happened, this is a real world thing. My first thought is like 1,000 expletives, and it ends with, "Of course I have," and that's the nicest part of it. And so then the second thing is, well, you just got to put your trust in Christ.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you know this or not, but part of me accepting Him was trusting Him.
Yes.
And it's not that I don't trust Him now, it's that my brain says that I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I can tell you, and this is the weirdest thing, and if you've got mental health issues, feel free to write in. The weirdest thing to me is when I'm under anxiety or depression, is I can sit here in my logical brain and say, oh, I'm in a depression right now. This isn't even real. And then at the same time, I'm like, I've never been more alone. Everyone hates me.
Yes.
I might as well not have been born Job style.
You're two people at the same time.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens all the time.
They lock people up for that.
Yeah. And then the government shouldn't hear about this. But then at the same time, someone will say, well, you just got to put your trust and faith in the Lord, man.
Yeah.
It's like, No, I am. And
Which one of us are you talking to?
Yeah. That's why I'm so distressed about it.
Yeah.
It's like, what that does is that doesn't encourage someone and say, you know what, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It says you've been doing it wrong. Your relationship isn't as good. Or the worst thing, God has abandoned you in this.
Yes.
And again, the second part of me will be like, no, he's not.
Right.
We know explicitly in his word he has not abandoned us.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, you're like, well, what if I read that wrong? Yeah, it is. There's nothing worse than saying this isn't real,
Yeah.
but it's still being the absolute truth for you in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that goes for the whole thing. Anxiety. My anxiety used to be really bad. It has gotten tremendously better. There was a time that you're Brian. I got you. There was a time in my life there I had tried to sign up for a gym membership, and I sat in the parking lot of the gym for over an hour, like sick to my stomach at the thought of saying, hey, can I get a tour and sign up? And I left and didn't even do it because I was so anxious just at the thought of whatever would have been behind that door of the Gold's Gym.
Yeah.
A nice worker is what would have happened.
Yeah.
But that's where it was. You sent me that thing this morning of like, I'll say I don't care, but then I'll throw up
Yes.
Anxiety.
Yes.
That's exactly it. And it doesn't make sense because,
I'm okay.
yeah, and like, you know, now as a person, like I'll still kind of get a little bit nervous, but I'll go talk to you, do whatever. And it's perfectly fine because it's perfectly fine. But anxiety doesn't make sense. And depression doesn't make sense. And all these other mental hangups we have don't make sense. And we know they don't make sense, but it doesn't stop it. And you know, your comparison talking about the broken arm, whenever we talked about that before, is the best I have ever seen. Because you can't willpower your arm not to be broken, and I can't willpower my depression to go away.
No.
But why do we think we can do that? And did you get what I was saying? Because, you know, I talked about like older generations. It was such like a thing. Yeah. And I think that there's a group, an age group of people out there that suffer from depression, but don't realize that's what depression is.
Well, you were laughing about the government, but in the past, if you were at work, so you think of this whole area. The majority of this area has, or their parents or grandparents have worked at one of these three plants.
Sure.
And so you think of the people that live their lives with the thought of if they went to a doctor for a mental condition that they would lose their livelihood.
Yep.
Right? And so when I went here not too long back, I told her that I wanted to, you know, I was like third person talking.
Yeah.
So there's this person.
I've got a friend.
I got a friend that's having a little problem. You know,
he doesn't want to lose his clearance.
Do you have any suggestions? Because he don't want to lose his clearance, you know, or his job. And so she assured me that the head of the lab, the head of the medical department, the head of DOE, everybody had come to the conclusion, because we had a guy on site that killed himself.
I didn't know if that was real or not. Because it's not like I thought you were lying.
Oh, it's
I
real.
couldn't remember if you had actually said that or if I was like in a sleep daze.
No, it happened. And so she said they had been in talks about it before that, but when that happened, it put that at the forefront, and they went through and made sure that all the medical people on site knew that they have to start getting the word out that mental problems is not going to cause you to lose your job.
Yeah.
Now, if you come in and say, man, I'm really thinking about bringing a gun in tomorrow,
that's a problem.
You're probably not going to be working.
You're going to get the guy that's at the gate whose forearm is the size of that couch you're sitting on.
That's probably not going to work out. But if you go in and say, hey, you know, I'm struggling mentally, you know, I'm having trouble focusing on my job and stuff like that, they are going to pour their life into you. They're going to help you as much as they can. And that is different. That's a change.
Sure.
But what my point is, you think of the people in this whole area, say within 5 counties of the lab that work at the lab. There's probably 5 counties of people that work at the lab. You think of how many people for years and generations, because it's been there since the 40s, have worked there with that fear and was not able to speak to anyone about their mental problems.
Yeah.
Now, this is not the only lab. This is not the only government facility. It's not the only place that has that mentality.
Yeah.
Really, it's across the United States. But it's worse in these type of situations, I think.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you have whole big communities that have went for generations saying, I cannot mention mental problems.
Yep. And so then everyone, again, that causes isolation.
Yes.
And so, if you're feeling anxious, you don't talk about it, you just power through it.
It's crazy.
Well, then this person, they are also anxious, but they think they're the only ones going through that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I get it, in the 40s and 50s and the 30s, it was taboo. And if you had that, well, they'd, lock you up for less.
Yeah.
If a woman wanted to work at a certain point in society, they were deemed crazy, or they were hysterical, and it was just whatever. I get that. But, a lot of things that modern culture has brought forward have been detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the single best thing has been this: let's talk about our mental health. Because, again, I'll tell you this: I think that every single person alive has something. To whatever degree there is something that's abnormal, which makes it normal, I guess, if everybody does. But if you don't talk about it, you don't know, and you think it's just this singular problem, and it consumes you.
Well, I think that Tim Ray, that
People are afraid to speak out because they're afraid of what might happen on the job.
yes,
I get it. I fully do.
yeah. So we got we have whole societies of people this way, and that's like, it makes me think when Christ was on earth, and he was saying, so you've been told.
Yes.
You've been told to love your neighbor and to hate your enemy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you to love your neighbor and love your enemy.
As yourself.
Yeah, as yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how I think about now. But as with that, say that statement that he made, then you have people that say, well, my Jesus isn't going to, cause anyone to go to hell or send anybody to hell, and all. He's a God of love and all this stuff, and there's no way that I could go to hell no matter what I do or say. They take that overboard, and I think the same thing, kind of like what you were talking about. Like, I think everybody has something. I think that we don't know because it hasn't been able to be studied because people hide it.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's normal and what's not normal.
Yeah.
Because people that are believe in Christ could be thought as crazy.
Sure.
People that, that believe that what Buddha said is the greatest thing on earth could be, in a certain person talking to them could think they're crazy.
Yeah.
We don't have a good grasp on it because nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
So to say that everybody has something, everybody doesn't, you have to define what normal is.
Right.
And to define what normal is, you need subjects that are truthful, and nobody's been truthful for hundreds of years, so how do we know what's normal?
Right, I get that. It's not quantifiable. I think even if everybody was to be open, I don't think there is a quantifiable, you can say, normal.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody's brain works a little different.
Right.
The general process is short, straightforward, dead on.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that talking about it, and what I referenced Emmy, and I'll share it here too because it's one of the things that is the most heartbreaking for me. But I hope that it's going to pay dividends later, is when I get into a depression, call it a funk, whatever makes you feel comfortable. It is everything that I have in me to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, you know. If you don't, it sounds crazy, and I understand because it is. But I'll be, just sitting there, something, and it's like just staring off, whatever. And she'll say, hey, you want to come, play with me? You want to, make a cake? You want to do whatever? And, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I want more than anything to spend time with my daughter. But I can't. And I don't know why I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't get up. I can, but I can't.
Yeah.
And it's
you physically
yeah.
you mentally can't.
And I tell her, no, baby daddy doesn't feel good right now. And she said, your belly hurt. It doesn't. My heart hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing, and I never thought in my life that I would ever experience this. There is nothing that I have experienced that is more personally upsetting to me than not being able to explain to your daughter why you can't.
Yeah.
But you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that for the little bit of discomfort that it is now, and for like the pain that it causes me now to even talk about, that when she gets older, and when Izzy gets older, when Arrow get older, when things don't quite work right, and they start thinking differently than they did before, and something doesn't feel right, that they're willing to talk to me about it, so that I can at the very least hold their hand through it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think there's a prayer that you can pray that's going to say, oh, depression gone, or I would have prayed it years ago.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is probably, at least the people that I know that I've talked to, and myself, and is the feeling of that aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be across the board.
Yeah.
You may have a myriad of different thoughts in your head and whatnot, but the fact of that feeling alone, that under the juniper tree feeling that we have, we read about it, with Saul, of course. You read about it all through the scripture there that you read this morning, even with Christ.
Yeah.
When he was there and he gets the three people out of the crowd, out of his discipleship, brings them closer within a stone's throw for them to pray with him.
And he even says, like, explicitly to them, I am grieving unto
Yes. death. Yes, I need you worse than I've ever needed you.
Pray so you don't fall into temptation. Pray for me.
Yes. And of course they let him down too. He's feeling so alone. And then he's talking to his father, and then his father sends an angel. It's just awesome.
It is. And this is the one, like, we're tearing up together on that, because in that moment, and if you haven't read this in this way, I want you to go through and look at the three main gospel accounts of the prayer in Gethsemane. Because John glosses over it, because, again, personal reasons, I think. But you read how, again, he brings his three closest people to him in the entirety of the world.
Mm-hmm. And they can't help him either.
He doesn't just say, "Hey guys, we're gonna go do this. We're gonna pray up before we get arrested." It's like church things.
Yes.
He says, "Guys, I need you."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, like, he's grieving unto death.
Yes.
For God in the flesh to say that's how much he's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I need you guys to be here for me.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 separate times he goes off and he says this prayer, and they've let him down.
Yes.
So that's another dig of, like, he truly was alone.
Absolutely.
But then we get to read the prayer in Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Abba, Father.
Yes.
Which, if you don't know, is him saying daddy.
Yes.
Not just him saying, like, hey, Father, hey, Dad. It is little kid scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, Dad, I need help.
Yes.
And begging, and this is glossed over every time I've heard this, begging not to have to do what he has to do.
Yes.
Like we read, if the cup can pass, if there's any other way, that to me doesn't do justice to it.
No.
It is on his face, begging, don't make me do this.
Right. Well, the part that got me too was that he knows, and he says that he knows that the God, fatherhood, is capable of making this cup to pass. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He knows that, and he's like, like when Emmy comes up to you, she knows you're physically able to get up and go play with her.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he's like, I know you have the power. I know you have the ability. We kind of misplace that daddy aspect of if you have a little child, or if you've been a little child and you're looking at your father, and you know that this person that you're looking at is so much bigger and stronger and able to do things that you can't dream of doing, and then when they say no, or I can't, or not right now, which is all the things God says to us,
Yeah.
it could just break that little child's heart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we forget what that feels like as us talking to our Father, our Heavenly Father, God, and He's doing that as a man,
Yeah.
and He's doing that, and He's saying, "Daddy, I can't do this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see in Luke that the Father makes provision.
Mm-hmm.
No, son, I can't take this from you.
Yeah.
You still have to do this. And I realize that your help has failed.
Mm-hmm.
So he sends an angel to minister
Yes,
to him.
He sent him a helper.
We don't read what that looked like. We don't read what that was. It as far as I know, and like what I imagine is it was just to hold him.
So, sounds like a comforter to me.
Yeah, because I think if I'm in that point and I'm begging my dad for something, and I know I'm going to have to go through this alone, and all that I want is to just hold something, and just to be held in that moment. And so that, to me, that's what it looks like.
To me, it was a representation of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it feels like to me, because it come to comfort him.
Yeah.
And we read of angels having all different jobs to do, protect, to praise, to do all these things, but comforting is a Holy Spirit job.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's who came. But it is such a, when you read that scripture the way you did this morning, and put that context on it, I can't imagine someone reading that and not getting out of it hearing it preached that way and not, and like dried.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
didn't affect me at all.
Yeah. No,
I can't.
I can't imagine either. And it with mom and dad both there, it was very funny because my parents handle emotions very differently.
They do.
And so mom would make eye contact for a good long while, which is fine.
I don't think your dad ever took his eyes off of you.
Well, he was wiping his eyes a lot, crying, and I don't know what it was specifically.
He needed
Dad's going through a rough patch.
Absolutely.
And the family is too.
Sure.
And I put on a bold face with it, but I'm scared to death, man. Like it really is. It's a struggle for us, but I have to keep telling myself that even like in the face of uncertainty, that God is still totally in control of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read about Abba Father, and I make the comparison of like it is a scared child,
yes,
holding their dad, asking for your dad, and then dad comes up with tears and hugs me after the fact. I'm like, this is what I need, and this is what we're trying to reach out for.
Yes.
And like I asked him if he was okay, and he just hugged me, and like he didn't say a word. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what he got, but he got what he needed.
Absolutely.
I believe. And for God to really, I'm so overwhelmed at the thought of God being able to use me to comfort my comforter. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
My entire life, Dad has been, that superhuman, as all dads are.
Sure.
And to see just in this year the toll that the treatment's taken on him.
Sure.
It's so very strange. It really is. And again, it's one of those situations that without God in my life, I don't know how I could go through this. I don't know how I could be any help to anybody without being a detriment.
Right.
I was clearing out some trees for him a few months back, and he couldn't get the oil cap off on the chainsaw. And he was like, I can't even walk back up to the house to get the wrench. And in my mind, I was like, why can't you get the cap off that?
Mm-hmm.
You've never struggled.
Right.
Why are you struggling now? And it's really hit me this year just how much a human can feel,
Oh, absolutely.
because I've done my best to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And reading that this morning was as much for me as it was for everybody
Sure.
else, because like I may not be fixing to be crucified, but it's a rough go of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. And I don't know what to do. And I am scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I've prayed 1,000 times. Just take it away.
Mm-hmm.
You can.
Yeah.
I know you can.
Right.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a no.
Right.
For whatever reason. And so then you go back to Job and you say, okay, it's a no. What do we do? How did Job handle it? And it doesn't mean it's going to get better right now. People always say, well, it's the darkest before the dawn. It's also dark before it gets dark.
Yes. Yes. That's what Tim was saying, that when he gets in that exact same spot you're talking about, where, especially if Father says no,
Yeah.
Then the adversary tells you, well, you're just not right with God.
Yeah. That's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. And like I say, the church that I was raised in, not all of them, but a lot of them were in that mindset of who sinned, you or your parents.
Yeah.
They were in the mindset of, well, you're just not close enough to God. Let's pick your life apart.
Yeah.
And see, what are you smoking? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And they would start to pick your life apart of why something was happening to you, until of course something happened in their life.
Sure. And then it's completely separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Like you said this morning, I think you said it this morning, it rains on the just and the unjust.
Yeah.
The difference is how we handle it.
Yeah.
So, like what you're going through, I lost my dad almost 20 years ago now. Seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
But for someone that grows up, with their dad in this, like I was talking about, that person like you're talking, that can do anything, is always there.
Yeah.
Now some people don't have that. Some people have parents that die and they're glad they're dead. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of life that they've lived. That's what we was talking about at the very first of what's your environment. Mine and your environment with our dads was great.
Yeah.
And so when they start to pass, or things happen to them, a lot of things happened to Dad because he was reckless. But you start to see they start to turn human.
Yeah.
And for us, our dads weren't human.
And you don't like it when they are.
And that's to put God, for him to come and become human, just like you were talking about this morning. Man.
Don't it just? Yeah.
So he came, our Father, in essence, became human, so that we could see him as he is. And so when our parents start to get sick or whatever, we see him in a different light. And he came so that God wouldn't be this far off person, but he would be someone that we could cuddle up to, that he could be Father. He could be Daddy, not just Father. And he called himself our friend. And most people, if they're truthful about it, they know that if you have one true friend in life, you're lucky.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's emotionally effective to think of our dads in a human state. And it's almost like the trial is for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ's trial was. I mean, it was for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I hate it with everything that I have. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
because right now it doesn't make sense. Right now it is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's uncomfortable, and everybody in the world feels guilty.
Yes.
And I hate the position of feeling guilty for wanting my dad to go through treatment to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there was ever actually a time where he was ready to just say, "Not gonna try it. I'll just die painfully."
Mm-hmm.
I do think he always wanted to.
Mm.
I don't think he wants to die. I think he wants to live as much as he can.
Yeah.
And he's willing to go through that. But, we're on the outside of, I feel selfish.
Sure.
And it really...
There's lots of emotions.
Sure. Yeah. And I didn't expect this to go here today, but it must have needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think you need it.
I think about his mental state because... Nicole told me just a few nights ago, she said, "You seem like you always have it together, like you have no issues." And I was like, always this close to a breakdown. And I think of...
It actually bothers me.
Yeah, it's as fake as can be, man.
I know it is, and that's why it bothers me. Yeah.
I think of both my parents, and we've never been a really emotionally open family, just because we haven't been. Mm-hmm. You can see it. That's me.
I'm aware.
And I want to know. I know how they're feeling, but I want them to share that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to talk to them.
Much healthier.
Not even if we can help it, just to share it.
It's healthier.
And that's kind of what was really the driving force today of what the message turned out to be, was that we've got to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Is we have to come to a point where we realize that it's not anything we've done wrong. When things happen, we're here to help one another, and not to just bite the bullet and grit our teeth and say, "No, it's whatever. Let's let it happen." And that's a horrible way to live.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes to everything. It's not just for cancer treatment and being sick.
Oh, no.
It's for depression. It's for anxiety. It's for all these personality
being able
disorders.
to talk about having anxiety and depression was almost unheard of unless you say, "Did you hear about so and so?
Yeah,
they told somebody they had mental problems and now they're locked up down there." And that was the old.
Down at the funny farm.
Yeah, they're down at the funny farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
or in West Virginia, they went up to Spencer. That's just where the funny farm is. So.
I remember being a child and hearing about depression and being like, you're just sad. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, I wasn't depressed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
To be a child again and to not go through that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how things change and how God's able to kind of open that up.
But the big thing about that and what Christ teaches is communication, is to be, open and all that. And every time society or human beings don't do what he says, it's bad. So if we hide that, we don't talk about it, it's just like in the church, just like where Anna had those meetings, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. If you hide that, you make that taboo and you can't talk about it. If it's about different types of, what do they call them? The different Bibles. Not different
Translations?
Bibles. Different translations. You can't talk about it if that's taboo. If whatever.
I've been calling it the sex, drug, and rock and roll whenever I've been. I didn't know that's what it was. I was throwing that in there.
Oh, no,
that's
that's
actually what she titled it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last one was critical theory.
Yeah, I remember because whenever I saw that, that's what she said. This is kind of the unofficial title, and I was like,
oh,
that's what I've been saying.
You have to tell the microphone.
Jamie said my live isn't working now. Hopefully it's back. We just saw your message pop up. Tim said, now I can see but not hear. Okay. Please let us know if and when you can hear again.
I'll go here while you finish.
Tim asked, My mother has very bad health, and when I pray for God to ease her suffering, it scares me that God will take her home to ease her suffering. Do you ever feel like that? Absolutely. Uh, and I kind of have a weird view on that, if this makes sense to you, brother. I don't know. I hate that my dad is going through what he's going through, but I still love my dad, and you still love your mom, and I think almost selfishly, I want what I want for healing, if that makes sense. And part of me part of me has the mindset of uh, your will be done, but a greater part of me has the background of I want my will to be done. I want it to work how I want it to work out. I, I know that we have to submit to God's will, but I think He also understands our desire. I think He understands our want. I think He understands our selfishness of wanting our loved ones how we want them. Uh, that's it. Yeah, we want the Lord to heal, but how we want, and I think He knows that. And my encouragement for you in that is an encouragement that I have to tell myself often is it's okay to feel. God is understanding and He loves you and He knows that your ways are not His ways and He knows that you're imperfect. But I can tell you that He is just thankful that He's hearing from us. Uh, so I don't think there's a harm, and Philip, I don't know if you can help me explain this any better. I don't think there's a harm in wanting a prayer answered a very specific way, and even being upset when it's not, as long as we understand that God still has that purpose for a reason. Uh, Same for me. My mother is one of the few people I think about talking about depression and anxiety. And that's fantastic. Keep praying for her and keep praying for healing the way that you want it and pray that it aligns with the way God wants it. And this is where we come to the part no one likes to talk about is if God heals someone by taking them home, we have to believe that that's the best solution for them, that was His plan.
Well, you said you don't like this, but shutting doors and opening doors and all that.
Yeah.
And so, Tim, here where you've been visiting some, we, I can't imagine a better group of people that you could talk to about those things.
We're all so sad.
But, you know, you may not want to hear this, but God could be putting you in a place to take the place of those conversations that you have with your mother, and which would be another thing off of her plate that that she could go on home if she's sick unto death. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, we have to be open-minded about the whole body of Christ and about the whole, what everyone has as a job, and seeing other people's needs and all those type things. And we kindly sometimes get off of that and we feel like, well, this person's the only person that can help me or the only person I can talk to, when He has a myriad of people that are Christ in the job on earth here to help us. And we just have to ask God and reach out for that help.
Yeah. One of the best things I think that we have ever done is there have been several Sunday nights that I've come up and was like, hey, let's talk about it. I'm going through it. And I talked about journaling earlier, and Tim, this may help you out as well. I journal like I pray. And sometimes it's as simple as this is what happened today. Sometimes it is I write out my concern and I try and find clarity for it. A lot of times whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever it is, my thoughts are jumbled, and to just get them written down and to be able to look at them helps clarify. But I mean that's like whenever I pray, because sometimes whenever I pray, I feel like I just go in a circle and in a loop, and it feels like God is saying, this is where it's at, this is the focus, you have the answer, I'm giving it to you. And that's why I kind of loop in on that. Journaling does that for me sometimes. And it allows me to speak to someone who's not there, because I'm kind of speaking to myself and God at the same time, and He gives me that. But I think it's a lot better to do it with a group. I recommend all of it. Write your thoughts out, get with a group of people, talk about that. Like I said, we have Sunday nights sometimes where we just, this is what's been going on, let's talk about it. And I think we really do it well, because we don't ever say, well, this is what you need to do. It is, I understand it, I'll pray with you. Because there is no advice a lot of times in those situations. There really
If
isn't.
you just get rid of that sin in your life, it'd be better.
Oh, sure. Listen, if it really was that easy, it would be that easy. If praying about it was really all that it took, like one and done, the world would be a perfect place.
Sure.
But this is a real thing. And again, there's a lot of things that are great on paper, hard in practice. And life is that. And I wish I could get, I wish I could give you something more and better for your situation.
So you
with
know
your
the
mother.
statement, honor your father and your mother, that your years would be long upon the earth.
Yeah.
So the same thing, that's Christ, Abba Father. He's saying, if you just listen to me, you know what I'm saying? And so what happens is we've had generations and generations and generations of people that have not listened. And here we are.
Yeah.
And we're in that, and we live in that. And so He knows, before he spoke the foundation of the world into existence, He says that He give us every spiritual blessing that we would need for the time that we were born in. So He knew, because He's outside of time, that we would be living in this time that is so spoiled by sin. And people say, well, the world's just so sinful now, you just can't get away from it. No. No.
It's never.
He put every spiritual blessing we would ever need into us before He ever spoke the world into existence.
Yeah.
So his seed was already implanted with those spiritual blessings, that because we're from Him. And so when we have been reborn and we are part of Him, and He is now our Father, then that seed, not our human seed, but that seed has every spiritual blessing we need to get through what we need to.
Yeah.
It's just, do we access it?
Yeah.
And part of that spiritual blessing is people.
Yeah.
He's always used people.
I was about to say, I'm so glad you followed up on that.
I'm not
that
going to
sounds
say
very
that
much
all
like
you got to do is just pray. No. All you got to do is realize that it's bigger probably than what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And it's more close than what you're probably thinking. And it's more accessible than probably what you're thinking. Because He's no longer that God that's way out there.
He's not.
Now remember when I
started.
started talking about the Christ message, when I was blaspheming earlier, is that we are the Christ message now, here on earth. And we have the Holy Spirit within us. We have the Father and the Son in us. And He is working through us, using us as hands, feet, mouth, ears, ears to listen, mouths to talk. And if people would realize that and use that and rely on that, like Tim was talking about with his mom, and he's like, well, she's the only one I got. No, she's not.
That's not to say that you still can't talk with your mother on that too.
Sure.
But it's God has an abundant resource.
Absolutely.
And that is people.
Cattle on 1,000 hills.
Yeah. And the church, the only reason that we meet is to be that resource for one another. So, I'll extend that olive branch out there. We are always available to discuss, to talk, to be able to do that. And privately, corporately, however you want to do that.
Again, she's talking about taking a free. I'm right there with you,
Yeah,
Jamie. But
listen, if we could be robots after salvation and just live perfectly,
it's just not His plan.
because you have to have free will to love.
You do.
That's what it boils down to.
To have for him to have agape love for us, we have to have free will.
Yeah. Do you think? Real quick, hopping back on the dad thing. I'm not a big fan of, I guess, giving up when you don't need to on a lot of things, and so like I'm not. I believe spiritually, I'm there with God for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But by no stretch does that mean that I'm like prepared. Like, oh, if Dad wants to die, I'm cool with it. Because I'm absolutely not.
Oh, right.
Clearly, and I'll do whatever. And I believe
I have a
he's
period
there
of
too.
time I cannot remember.
Sure.
When Dad passed,
I believe it.
Listen,
I about passed out just then.
I have no memory.
Yeah.
Of quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Like, I've become overwhelmed with emotion before. Mm-hmm. I've never experienced what happened whenever I did that before. Mm-hmm. That was like the room wasn't there, blackness, because in that moment I was a little boy. Mm-hmm. And was confused and scared. Very much like the day that he got his skull cracked open. And I was just like very briefly told, hey, your dad's in the hospital. And I was like, yeah, he's not. But anyways, done with that conversation. You had to get that out there. Do you think that God looks at, because again, and this is the amazing part about God, is he's an individual God. Mm-hmm. And he's this incredible, everywhere, all at once, supreme deity. Mm-hmm. But he looks at us as individuals. Do you think, and I know the answer, I just want to hear your opinion, do you think that he hurts with us? Do you think that he sees the things that hurt us, mm-hmm. and he grieves with us and he mourns with us?
Absolutely.
While he uplifts us?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's how I read Scripture. Mm-hmm. And I think, Job's 3 friends, the first thing they do, people all say, oh, well, they were kind of harsh on him and they were accusatory. Yeah. What's the first thing they did? For 7 days, they put ash on their heads, mm-hmm. and they sat in silence and grieved with their friend.
Yes.
I believe that as we struggle with whatever it is, with our parents being sick, with finances, with our children, whatever it is, I believe that as it breaks our heart, it breaks God's heart.
Absolutely.
And he is fully with us in that. He's sitting to the side in the same ash mourning with us, mm-hmm. as we are.
Sure.
Just like when we celebrate,
I think the Bible
God
over
is with
and
us.
over again teaches us that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
that he mourns when we mourn. He rejoices when we rejoice. He says all of heaven rejoices.
Yeah. All
of heaven mourns. You can read those type text over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's all of heaven rejoices and all of heaven mourns, then
God's included in that.
Yeah, that's all of heaven.
And so that's
all means all.
That's an impressive comfort, mm-hmm. Because that means that while I'm struggling on something that, and again we always say like, oh, it's a little thing. It isn't. It's as big as as it is to us, mm-hmm. and it's as big to God as it is to us. And so where I'm struggling right now with dad being hurt, mm-hmm. and realizing that my dad is a human, and he's a man, and he's facing mortality, mm-hmm. And the discomfort that is. God is with me in that, mm-hmm. and he feels that hurt with me. And it's not that he's looking at it and say, "Don't hurt." He's saying, "I made you to feel these emotions."
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that we want to tell people, well, now you can't go talk about that. Now let's just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Just tighten up. Come on, be a man. Strengthen up. It'll be okay. It'll pass. Time will heal all wounds. All that stuff.
That's another one.
I can't stand that.
If I never hear it again,
I can't stand that. No. You know what I want you to do? I want you to sit with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to hold you for a little bit.
Yeah.
You've been on this crusade for a minute here now, but I picked it up this morning talking about the you can do it.
I can't stand it.
You can fight this. You're stronger than this.
It drives me nuts.
You absolutely can't. No. You absolutely cannot. You cannot willpower anything. Mm-mm. because you don't have willpower. That's why we sin. All the willpower that you feel that you have, that you've accomplished anything, the same willpower that keeps me from drinking is God.
Absolutely.
It's not me.
Yeah.
Because you know what me did?
Yeah.
Me started drinking.
Uh-huh.
I got me where I was.
Yeah, I would love nothing better than to leave here and go get a big margarita.
Pina colada margarita, have a good time.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
me. That's what me would like to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah. The willpower that keeps me from doing that is not mine.
yeah, and it's a misguided faith when people are saying you can do this and you're stronger than this and you can't.
Even though we're talking about this for the podcast, and I know you feel the
We
same
got to
way.
change the title, by the way. This ain't short and sweet.
It's not.
It's long and sad.
Yeah. Long and sad, not short and sweet. That's funny, though. It's because we thought what we were going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Again,
thought.
just like this morning's message. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You said you feel the same way with the podcast.
Oh, is that I know we're doing this for the sake of the podcast or for Christ, for
Yeah.
the outreach. But the reason I was talking about the me wants to go get a margarita is because this has made me think about my dad.
Sure.
This makes me think about what you guys are going through with your dad. Plus, I love him too.
Yeah.
And I think about Jamie and I think about Tim, and it hurts.
Makes you not want to feel anymore.
Yeah.
So
And so my old person to not feel anymore, what would I do?
right.
Yeah. But the new person, he relies on Christ.
Yeah.
And so that's where we take that thing in our life, whatever that thing is, and we get that out of our life so that we can rely on him. And when we rely on him, what are we doing? We're placing our trust and our faith in him, that he can, when we sit on his lap, that it does heal. It does, rejuvenate us.
You bringing that up reminded me of this, and we're talking. Let's talk about it. I think I've shared with you quite a bit of my struggle and my past. And one thing that I never considered ever creeping back in was self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to tell you, that has been the biggest struggle in these past few months.
Sure.
And it doesn't even feel like it's like dad related, but it's all related in one way or another. But I've had to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a new understanding.
Feels like it's the best time of your life in some ways, and then why would we even?
It doesn't make any sense why I would want to cut myself again.
Mm-hmm.
And different reasons, different people. Mine was never a look at me. It was always a I deserve this.
Sure.
Or something. I never really got a good explanation for it. It just happened. And it's just been like back of my mind, that little voice. It's been like, well, I can't get you to kill yourself. You want to, but you won't. So maybe I can get you to harm yourself.
Uh-huh.
And it's been insane.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that
Just stop listening to it.
I know that I have a life. I know that I have a purpose. I know that I have an Abba that loves me, and I know that breeds nothing good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to help even temporarily.
Right.
But my mind is like, do
This
it,
is the path.
and you're going to love it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I probably would.
Yeah.
And so I've got to fight that back, and then we go back to
You
suicide.
know how this made you feel before?
Yeah, and I think of I keep having to fight that back of a life without dad's not worth living, and that's wrong.
Right.
And I think of Conway Twitty, because he has that song. Completely lost it, but the whole song is basically like a young Conway Twitty terrified of losing his dad and crying about it. And that song was always just a song.
Uh-huh.
Now it's not a song
Oh
anymore.
yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
And again, on one breath, and this is the dichotomy of Austin. I'm saying, regardless what happens, God is God. He is faithful, just, and good. And the other side is like, but I'm scared.
Yes.
And so, really, this episode is just to let everyone out there know
How
that
crazy we are.
every single person in the world is the exact same. We're all just as scared and unsure as everybody else
We're
is.
all little children. Yeah.
I don't like it. I gotta tell you, I absolutely hate it. And it's not like, oh, I hate it because I cried and I felt emotion. I hate that you have to get to that point. I hate that you have to feel. I'm glad I get to feel because you get to experience the good and the glory. But you gotta get the bad when you get the good. That's not fun. I'm drained.
My doctor, she was talking to me, and I was asking her, was my medication keeping me from feeling like the power of God? And I thought I was like the only person who ever asked her this question. And she was like, this is a common question. And she's like, get out from under your juniper tree, and so I was like, well, I feel like it's messing with my walk, I'm going to stop taking it. She's like, you can't just stop taking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, so if you really want to, we can get a plan and everything together. But she said, how about using this as your walk? Because she said, why do you follow him? Do you follow him because of the feelings that you get from him? Or do you follow him because he's God? And you've come to the realization of who he is, and you worship him for who he is, not for what he does for you. So if you never have another good feeling from him, would you still worship him? And I was like, oh,
you're such a good doctor.
Wish I had another doctor.
Yeah.
But I mean, who's got a doctor that prays with them? Who's got a doctor that prays for them?
Right.
Who's got a doctor that prescribes? This is what she told me. She said, here's what I want you to do. Instead of coming off the medicine, I want you to start poking your nose in the Word and reading about God's promises, what God's promises are for you. And she said, you get stuck on God's promises. And those promises, if you believe that that it's the God that you serve, he is God, and you believe he can't lie, and this is the promises he has for you, it doesn't matter if you feel them or not.
Yeah.
Do you believe in those promises?
Yeah.
And so she said that gets you to a more mental healthy state. And she said it's proven. Yeah. It's even scientifically proven. And she said if you can get to that state, then you can come off the medicine. And then you'll have your feelings back, but you'll have your security and the blessings of God without the feelings.
I love that that she doesn't want you to stay on this for the rest of your life. And she said,
I didn't put you on this for you to stay on this. Yeah. This is so you can get your mind right, so that you understand what you're supposed to feel like, and what you're not supposed to feel like. And then once you get that trained in your brain, what's real and what's not, and who's speaking, and and all that stuff, then because that's pretty clear now. It wasn't before; it's real muffled.
Sure.
And so she said, once you get the clarity of that down, and you get your nose in God's Word, and you understand what his promises are, then we can talk about coming off the medicine.
So you showed up and was like, hey, I want off these pills.
I'm like, you gotta get me off. This is killing my relationship. She's like, no, it's building your relationship.
She said, not only are you staying on the pills, you're getting homework.
Yes.
But that's the power of God, and that shows you that, we want to get in these bubbles. We want to get in these little cliques and say, well, outside of this, we can't trust anybody. But God is like, who was was it Elijah?
That was the juniper tree. I'm the only one you got left.
Yeah, Jezebel's after me. I just literally called down fire from heaven and killed 800 prophets of Baal. But this angry woman who also worships Baal and Molech are after me. I'm the only one. Call me home. God said there are thousands. And so we think that it's just us. Don't. Our adversary has told me several times to end it. I've caught myself praying, Lord, I don't want to do that, but I would love for you to take me home. Ever feel like this? Feel I need your doctor. Brother, that is exactly Job 3, first off.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Job 3, it's in two parts in that chapter. The first half is Job hates the fact he was born.
Yes.
He prays that somehow, there's a mention there of him saying those that curse the days, yes. Because there was a very weird time of people that would like put curse. He was like, curse this day. Yes. Go back and
curse
make sure
the day
this never
that
happened.
I was born.
I wish that my mother didn't produce milk, so I died. Yes. I wish I was stillborn. And then he said, and this is the dichotomy, and this is the mindset kind of that you have to work out, is not that I would kill myself. Because there's nothing that stops someone from killing themselves.
Nope.
Aside from like permanent physical restraint, you'll find a way.
Absolutely.
Job said, I don't want to kill myself. I just want to not be here anymore.
Yeah.
And I've had both experiences.
And he says exactly, God, you have the ability to take me out. Just take me home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's normal, first off.
It's very normal.
And that's the important thing with a lot of this is...
That's a weird statement. That it's normal.
Okay, maybe that's not the right wording.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of.
It is normal, I think, for people that I've talked to that have depression.
Yes.
Most people with depression that also are followers of Christ would have that statement.
Yes. Okay. That's a good way to put it too,
yeah.
Because Job would fall into that category of a follower of God, and I think that the driving force is knowing that God has given you a life for a purpose.
Yeah, because an unbeliever or someone that is agnostic or whatever would not make that statement.
Yeah.
They still may kill themselves, but they're not going to look at it that way, or they're not going to say, well, to keep me from killing myself, God, I know you're the giver and taker of life. Yeah. Will you take mine?
Yeah.
They're not going to say that because they wouldn't give him that authority.
Yeah. I think that's very, very on par with what Job was saying in chapter 3, and that is, it's such a common thought. And I've had both experiences. I've had the I want to do it, and I've had the I want you to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's motivated in two different ways. And one of them is the hopeless lost, because that's where it was. Mm-hmm. And then it was the I fully trust you. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And it almost feels like Garden of Gethsemane of, I can't do the task set before me. I can't, even if the task is just getting up, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. Take it away from me. Yes. I know you can. Mm-hmm. I know you can. So, yes, we absolutely have felt that way. Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk to you at work about the doctor.
Yeah, but I think that the Bible reads as a really tragic story that God shines light on. Mm-hmm. Because all of the humans in the Bible, all of them, great sorrow, great trial, great tribulation.
So please don't take this the wrong way. But another thing that I never cared for in the body of the church, I guess you can say that. What did Paul say? They were among us, but they weren't of us.
They came from us, but they were not of us.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's that or if they're actually part of the body and just misspeaking. Mm-hmm. But I don't like it when they hear about someone that's a part of the body that has committed suicide and they say, well, they went to hell. Yeah, I can't stand that.
Nope. There are 8 examples in Scripture of suicides, mm-hmm. and at least 2 of them were like God gave the ability for it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say...
Samson being one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that it's like, oh, God is cool with it. He doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely is not.
He's not.
No.
That's not even like a last resort. He does not want that.
Absolutely
because he
not.
gave you the life to live.
Yeah.
But to say that is to say that, oh, that's unforgivable. That's the one sin. Or that's also the backwards mentality of you've got to continually repent after every sin or it doesn't count. And they just didn't have that opportunity.
Right. That's how I was raised.
Yeah.
That if you committed suicide, you would never have the opportunity to ask forgiveness for that sin of murdering yourself.
Yeah, that's not how it works. don't take that as you have free range to do it.
No,
God's
no,
cool
no, no.
with it,
That's what I'm
'cause it's
saying.
not.
Please
Yeah.
do not misunderstand
Yeah.
that statement.
But that should give some comfort to those out there that have lost that battle.
Yeah.
And what a battle.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else I was going to go with that.
I mean, I think about people that get to that point, and actually follow through. Man, I think of what they've went through mentally
Oh, yeah.
to get to that point of actually doing that.
Well, I also think of like the approaches that I made to it, and just the small things that stopped it, the small things that set it apart. I had a really hard conversation with Austin a couple of years ago because I was having a really hard time dealing with the death as a direct result of misinformation from my dad. Yeah, and that's a lot of it too. Because that idea is so prevalent within the church, it brings a lot of unnecessary sorrow to people that are left. Like on top of dealing with survivor's guilt and sorrow for a lost loved one, well, now you have eternal damnation on their charge too, and it's unbiblical.
Yes.
It's simply at that. God gave us a life to live, and that's why we have to live it.
Absolutely.
And he makes no promises of it being perfect or
Well,
painless.
to a child of God, the scripture is clear. You're no longer your own.
Yes.
And so to a child of God, your life is not yours to take, to live, to take, to do whatever with. It's His.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem with that. Not that if you step in, which you think of it this way. So you become a child of God. You're not your own anymore. So, and He says, Austin, I want you to preach. And you say no. How many preachers have you talked to that says they went for years knowing they were supposed to be a preacher and they didn't? And so, but if they would have been in a car accident while they weren't being a preacher, that doesn't send them to hell.
Right.
The whole thing about it is you're just doing something that is outside of God's will.
Yeah.
And doing things outside of God's will is what humans do. They've done it for thousands of years. And it's not... becoming a child of God is realizing who God is, accepting that, being subject under Him, and this, like we talk about, it's a daily decision. It's a wake up and yes, I'm gonna, I'm not gonna be the boss today.
Yeah.
It's more than a repeat after me prayer.
Everything is more than a repeat after me prayer.
I mean, how could the people that we're talking to, Tim, you, me, your cousin, Jamie, how could we just say, well, we've accepted Christ and we don't have to get up every day and put ourselves together and say, yes, I'm going to go to work. Yes, I'm going to get up. Yes, I'm going to, in essence, like Tim's talking about, I'm not going to kill myself today.
Yeah.
How do we get up and put ourselves together every day like that without Christ and, you know what I'm saying, and live our lives, live His life through us? How could we ever do that? I mean, it's not a one and done. It's not a repeat after me prayer. It's a life of Christ that we live through our flesh.
Yeah, He didn't forget you. He's just horrible with names.
Sorry, I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tim, we're glad that you're asking about these things. We're glad that you're. When I started my ministry journey, and I was asked during my ordination, like, not really like a mission statement, but like, what is my idea? I talked about my depression and my suicidal thoughts, and it's still the same. It's just changed. What it looks like is that it's such a bad place, and it's such a hard place to be at, that I would do anything in my power to prevent someone else from feeling that way.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why today wasn't 20 minutes.
No.
Because God has given us, even if it's to two people, He's given us the ability to talk and to flesh out, and He's given us liberty to speak about things that, as we have discussed, are deemed crazy or whatever.
Taboo.
And to say very openly that we are children of God and we struggle.
And we got problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God knows about it. He cares about it. He loves us and He helps us, but they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian life's not easy. It's not perfect. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, at times it doesn't.
So is the non-Christian life.
At times the Christian life doesn't feel worth it. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. Because how easy, like we were saying, how easy would it be to just go get drunk?
Mm-hmm.
Good
Right.
times. But we don't get to.
No.
We have to, and I'm saying this, I don't mean it this way, but we have to just kind of suffer. But it's not just we have to suffer. It's we have a new life.
Mm-hmm.
We have new desires. We have new everything. But
Well, we have hope.
and that's it. And that's the difference.
That's what I didn't have before, was hope.
And that's it. That absolutely is it. Because I remember the day. That I was right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it went from being the stopping point to a prayer that led me here.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on it now, I'm like, man, that's the worst prayer. That's stupid. And you could tell because I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the glorious thing of God is He's like, hey, listen, it doesn't have, just talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And God didn't even care that I was like being stupid about it, that I was making deals with Him. He said, if that gets you to talk to me, I'll work on you later.
Yes.
But I said, here's your two options.
Mm-hmm.
I've always believed that you're there. I just don't know who you are. My way's not working. Let's try yours.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are.
Well, I've talked to people before, and they're like, I'm so angry at God or whatever. And I'm like, tell Him,
Please tell Him.
He's been cursed on, spit on, beard pulled out, cat of nine tails, hung on a cross, had yours and mine and Austin's and everyone's sin bore on his back, turned into our sin. His Abba Father turned from Him because He had our sin on Him. You cussing Him out is not going to hurt His feelings. He's actually going to be excited because you are acknowledging Him as someone that you can actually speak to. Because I don't know if you realize this or not, but if you turn your face to heaven and you cuss out God, He's like, they believe enough on me to speak to me.
Yeah. We can work.
We're getting somewhere.
I can work with
We're
that.
getting somewhere.
Yeah.
So they're saying that I'm real enough that they're gonna cuss me out.
Yeah.
That means that to them, at least in this moment, that I'm a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll take that.
Oh,
He'll take I'm scared.
absolutely.
He'll take I don't trust you.
Yeah.
He'll take every bit of it and He will use that.
Yes.
The best feeling in the world, and this is where we've been today. If you'd like to see a practical application of what I'm fixing to talk about, go back to the early part of the podcast. The single greatest thing that you can do, at least for me, is to come to God as a scared child and tell Him you're scared. And to tell Him what you're scared of, and to tell Him exactly, Dad, I am so afraid of this. Because that's what's happened earlier. And God is like, okay, I'll be here with you, and I'll hold your hand in the meantime. We'll get through this.
Oh yeah.
And it's incredible. So many years angry at God, but I learned I was really angry with myself all along. God was happy when I found my way back to Him, and that concept was terrifying for me for the longest time. That's the trick of the devil, because he likes to make you think that God's going to be mad at you and He's going to not accept you back. And God's like, I've never once said that.
I call it whack-a-mole God.
Yeah.
There are in and out of the church body, there are people that teach what I call whack-a-mole God. That God is this
Magnifying glass to
yeah,
ants.
magnifying glass to ants, or you pop your head up and he whacks you back down because he doesn't want you to because we take verses. I almost said this verse earlier and I thought no, it'll be taken wrong, but now I've got to use it.
Go for it.
So, where he says that I've suffered, I've died, I've done all these things, and who are you to think that you're not going to suffer, you're not going to die, that you're the servant, and I'm the father, you're the son, I'm the leader, you're the follower, however you want to word that. And he says, if you're a follower of mine and you are proclaiming what I'm proclaiming, if you're carrying on that message of the Christ, that what do you think's going to happen? What did you think that I brought it as God and they killed me, and you're going to bring it as a man, and they're going to accept it with open arms? What do you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
And that's what he's trying to say in that moment. And, because they're like, hey, we're getting beat down over here. And he's like, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
And so it's just a weird mentality that we have toward this, what do they call that? The rich man's Christianity, or the prosperity preaching and
gospel,
all that stuff. I just don't see it. Now the prosperity of the gospel is we get to live with God, and we get to live eternally, and we get to see Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's the prosperity that I see. And like we talked about with the red hymnal, 90% of the songs in there are about us.
Where's this mansion at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
One of them.
ready for that mansion?
Yeah. Can't wait to be on them streets of gold and be so wealthy. Yeah.
All this, all these things that are not what even makes heaven heaven. What makes heaven heaven is Christ is there in all of His glory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to read two different little sections here, and this is from the Psalms. So this would be ones that David wrote specifically. But when but he's a perfect example of this.
Is.
When we talk about however you feel,
anybody's ever been.
Yeah, however you feel, tell God about it.
Yes,
and He'll work out. So Psalm 22 is the perfect example of this, and I'll explain it as we go. My God,
I need my God.
If I have them, let's use them. Why hast thou forsaken me? First off, that should sound familiar. Why art thou so far from helping me, and from the words of my roaring? He's saying, God, why have you turned your back on me? Why are you so far from me? Why are you not listening? Why are you not helping? Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, in the night season, and am not silent. He said, I am crying out for you day and night constantly, and you're not hearing me.
Yes.
So he's getting mad.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
upset with God. But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted, and thou didst deliver them. You listened to these people. You did what they wanted, but you're not hearing me. They cried unto thee and were delivered. They trusted in thee and were not confounded. But I am a worm and am no man, a reproach of men and despised of the people. That's not depression. I don't know what is.
Absolutely.
All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip, they shake the head, saying, He trusted on the Lord that He would deliver him. Let Him deliver him, seeing He delighted in him. He said, everybody around me that sees where I'm at are mocking me for believing in you, and you're not doing anything for it.
And he's saying in reality, they're mocking you, God.
Yeah. He's bringing it out there. That's almost as if he's saying, like, if you're not for me, do it at least for you.
Yes.
And we do that to God
Absolutely.
all the time. We see it.
I've said it myself.
But thou art He that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breast. I was cast upon thee from the womb. Thou art my God from my mother's belly. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. He's saying, you're still my God. I hate you, but you're still my God.
You're not being fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many bulls have compassed me, strong bulls of Bashan have beset me around. They gaped upon me with their mouths as a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels. He said, I have no heart for this. I am beyond afraid. I'm done. The heart melting like wax, I get that, David. I absolutely get that. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws. Thou hast brought me into the dust of death. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I may tell all my bones, they look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them, and cast lots upon my vesture. Be not thou far from me, O Lord, O my strength. Haste thee to help me. Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth, for thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorns. So we have 21 verses here of David being depressed, anxious, scared, sad, angry, and at the end very commanding. Because God will listen to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So then here's the second half of that. I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the congregation will I praise thee. Ye that fear the Lord, praise him. All ye, the seed of Jacob, glorify him, and fear him, all ye, the seed of Israel. For he hath not despised, nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, neither hath he hid his face from him. But when he cried unto him, he heard. My praise shall be of thee in the great congregation. I will pay my vows before them that fear him. The meek shall eat and be satisfied. They shall praise the Lord that seek him. Your heart shall live forever. All the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Lord. All the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations. All they that be fat upon the earth shall eat and worship. All they that go down to the dust shall bow before him, and none can keep alive his own soul. A seed shall serve him. It shall be accounted to the Lord for a generation. They shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he hath done this. So he ends it by saying, I already know you're going to. I already know who you are. Everyone should praise you. We will lift you up. I will sing your praises. I will give. And it's not in the sense of like, if you do this, I will.
Right.
It is because I know you are, I will. And then it's also beautiful that Psalm 23 is immediately after that.
Yes.
Because that's the encompassing on that of how great God is. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That whole concept there is perfect for that. And so if David, the man after God's own heart,
Mm-hmm.
which we've discussed at times past, isn't necessarily a title, more of a description.
Yes.
If David can write that psalm to God,
Mm-hmm.
and get that title, get that description,
Mm-hmm.
I think we can tell him we're a little bit upset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that goes to the Abba concept. We'll just keep going as far as we can. To that Abba concept, when I talk to my dad, if I don't like something,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell him.
Sure.
Doesn't mean it's going to change.
No.
Emmy can tell me all she wants to of something, and if it's within my power and it's reasonable, we'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But all the time it's not.
Right.
If it's 11 o'clock at night and she wants to get up because she doesn't want to go to sleep, and she's like, I need a potty. And I'm like, we just did that. I know this is you just want to get up.
Mm-hmm.
We're not getting up.
Right.
You're going to stay in bed. You're not just going to get run around the house. And if she's mad at me, she'll tell me. And I'm like, okay, is it something I actually did and I need to apologize for? We'll do it. If it's not, sorry. Can't do nothing for you there. And I think that's how God works on a grander scheme in a
I
more
like
perfect way.
between 22, is it 21 and 22 or in 22 there, where that mode changes, where he's at first, he's really angry at God, he's doing all this, talking to him, and he changes to but I know you're God.
Yeah.
It's like to me, it's like we always want the other letters that were sent to Paul.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's God saying to his heart
Yes.
in this moment? Because there's a definite change right there.
Yeah.
And he's like, God, I don't like you, I hate you, And then
But
he's like, okay, you're God. I'm going to treat you as God,
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And so I think God had to speak to his heart because his conversation changes.
That or whoever his prophet was at the time was over his shoulder and was like, my king, I probably wouldn't.
I'd stop saying
Yeah,
that.
remember who we're talking about here.
So I seen a guy at a job when I was just a kid, even younger than you are now. But when I was at a job and this guy literally hated God. And it was raining one day, big thunderstorm, lightning cracking everywhere. I mean, it was striking our building. It was bad thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And he ran right out in our front yard that we had in front of the plant, ran out there in the middle of that thunder and lightning storm and was cussing God and saying, see, I know you're not real. If you was real, you'd strike me dead right now, and trying to get God to strike him with lightning, saying that he's not real. And then he come back in and he's laughing. He said, see, y'all's God ain't real. And I mean, I've seen lots of crazy different things and people in different ways. And at the time I thought, man, this guy's an absolute nut. And like, how in the world, and I thought it was so disgraceful or whatever.
Yeah.
But now being older and older in the faith, I'm thinking God's probably, like I was talking about earlier, like, well, at least he's acknowledging that I'm someone to speak to, not like, I am going to smash you or I'm going to, whack them on
even
you.
from his perspective, we think of like as a person, like if someone disrespected me, I'll show you I'm real.
Mm-hmm.
God's bigger than that.
Absolutely.
He doesn't think like that.
No.
We hear about that, and then we hear about people that have deconstructed their faith, and they say phrases like they tossed out the fleece or whatever, and it's super out of context, every bit of it. And like if you want context on that, when Jesus was in the desert tempted by Satan, the whole concept was like, don't tempt the Lord your God.
Yes.
And like God doesn't have to prove himself to you.
He does not. He says he does in nature.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like he doesn't have to like because this is your specific thing.
That's like, my lesson on quid pro quo.
Yeah, like oh, if you're really God, you'll strike me down. He's like, I don't have to do that.
He doesn't play quid pro quo.
And even like with the thought of saying throwing out the fleece, that's out of context.
It is.
That was a man that really needed proof. He needed to know for sure. You can say he was kind of skittish and he wanted to make doubly sure before because he didn't want to go. But either way it was, is this the proper path? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. Not, are you real? Yes or no?
Right.
It was, I have faith, let's do this.
And thousands of God's people were going to die if he made the wrong choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good to clarify.
Absolutely.
It's we hear about casting.
It was bigger than himself. It wasn't him and himself having a conversation. I mean, himself and God just having a conversation.
Gideon and the nation.
Yeah. He was like, I've been entrusted. I feel the weight of this. I need to really make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we hear all the time in Scripture about casting lots and like what does that mean? And it was basically in some form or another drawing straws.
Yes.
Whether it was rocks or dice or drawing straws, and that was a way to divine God's hand before we had the Spirit within us. And if you're on a boat and there's
Magic 8-ball.
Yeah, that's what it was. And God spoke at a time through that. Because if a prophet wasn't near, because there was only like one or two at a time, depending where you were, if you're on a boat with Jonah, there's no prophet at hand. How are we going to figure out what God's saying? You drew lots. That's kind of what throwing the fleece was out, in a way of like casting lots of what is this. Tim says, Psalm 22 sounds like what I was thinking, or being told by the adversary that God doesn't let others suffer with this. Look at them. You would be that joyful or strong if you were a true Christian. Though I don't understand others never being depressed or having anxiety, I want to trust that God has a reason and things will get better somehow. Absolutely. That is...
Most times they're just hiding it too.
I was about to say, out of all the Psalms, Psalm 22 I think speaks most to how I feel in depression. But as you can listen to at the very beginning there, even like when I look like I'm strong and joyful and on there, it's a very fragile mask. And that doesn't mean that I'm like always like depressed and I'm just masking it, but I'm not nearly as...
I don't know about you, but I think being that person myself, I see it in other people.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like birds of a feather flock together or
Yeah.
something. I can see it I can see the pain in other people's eyes, even though they may be laughing or cheerful or
Yeah.
whatever. I see it.
Yeah.
You know, I see the pain.
Yeah, I very much fall into like the Robin Williams category.
Yes.
Just without.
I'm very much Robin Williams.
Yeah.
I like to laugh and joke and carry on. Everybody having a big time and all that stuff
Yeah.
while dying inside.
Well, you know, and like I've also said, a lot of the reason that I am so lighthearted about a lot of the stuff is because I can't stomach to talk about it in a lot of, and it's not that I don't think that that's necessarily wrong because you don't want to be the Debbie Downer. When it's serious and we need to talk about it, let's talk about it. But God does give us a spirit of joy. He does give us peace, and like I think that's part of it for me at least.
When your wife was my little baby girl, she used to get on to me because I would say, you know, I'm just joking or whatever, and she said, "What you say that there's a little bit of truth in every joke. That's what makes it good." And what she was learning is something that she probably didn't. I don't know that she's ever picked up on. But what was really happening was there was a little bit of my reality in my mind coming through,
Yeah.
even though I'm trying to joke about it, and it was the little bit of the pain, a little bit of the real me that was slipping out into that,
Yeah.
that either got that joke started or was in verbiage inside that,
Yeah.
and that's slipping out, you know, and you can hear that a lot of times, you know, when I hear people joking or laughing or making fun of other people or whatever, I pick up on that
You
because
hear that
I
insecurity
feel
in there.
I feel a master in that
Yeah.
category, and I pick up on, you know, this is something they're dealing with.
Yeah.
This is a pain they have. I see this in their face, their eyes, their action,
Yeah.
because I feel at this point mastered in that.
I get that too. You know, the psychology behind, if we wanted to call it like the Robin Williams scenario,
Mhm.
would it kind of be, I guess, what I was talking about before, of like not wanting anybody else to go through that, and like if you know,
To try to
he
bring
was
joy, yeah.
obviously a very like struggling,
Absolutely.
hurt man, and so he was so funny and he was so like
Mhm.
bombastic. To keep that as far away from everyone around him as he could,
Mhm.
it's almost very self-sacrificial.
He needed other people to laugh.
Yeah, I'll carry this burden so you don't
Mhm.
have to, kind
Sure.
of thing. And I
But
fully get
100%
that.
understand.
Yeah. Wow. Folks, it's been 2 hours and 17 minutes, and I'm not going to the
Is it
bathroom
really?
yet.
So,
So-
my battery's dying.
We are going to have to get off here. I did not realize it was going.
goodness.
He said, I actually was wanting to talk to Phil at work, but I always saw him seeming happy and stuff and thought he might not understand. I think I'm crazy to say I'm having anxiety and stuff. It's hard to talk about it. I can speak for him, and he will speak for himself. He's in it with the rest of us on that, brother. He has been a great help to me off camera in our personal lives, and I would say that he would be more than willing to walk along with you in that as well.
For sure.
So we love you. We thank you. If you've made it for 2 hours and 17 minutes, praise God for you. We hope that this wasn't a knockdown, drag out depression. Hopefully you saw some humanity in this. You saw some of Christ and his actions and what he did and the pathway that he has for it. And hopefully, I'm still not very comfortable with being so open, but hopefully you saw a little bit of humanity, and this helps you see that a lot of times there is a lot of sadness, or there is pain, or there is something going on in that background. You know, I've said it 3 times now, that I'm always this far from it. That doesn't mean I'm always far from a breakdown, but life's hard. It really is, and it's especially hard for us right now. So we personally here at Blessing and Cursing could use your prayers for our personal lives. Our friends that have been commenting on here, you know, they've kind of shed a little bit of light on their issues as well. If you could pray for that, I know it would be greatly appreciated. Hopefully you got what we needed from this, because I definitely got what I needed from it. We encourage you to reach out. We're here to talk. We are. Through Facebook and email and stuff, you know, we can message, we can help as best we can. But we encourage you to find a group around you to talk with. I encourage journaling to kind of get your thoughts out of there as well as your prayer. Sometimes God can help you find things in that writing down, but it really helps you to clarify your thoughts. But the important part is to really talk about it, not to hide, not to suppress. Find somebody that you're comfortable and that you're safe with to talk about. And on the other end of that, if you're somebody that someone else reaches out to, don't blow it off. Don't cast it aside. Don't try and make light of it. If they're talking to you, understand that is a gigantic step for them, and it deserves respect and it deserves attention. And hopefully, through the Holy Spirit, you're able to give them what they need, and you're able to do what you can through that. But through everything, we do encourage prayer and your guidance on this. What works for me may not work for you, but God does have a path for it. We just thank you for listening. We love you, and we thank you so much. Coming up in future references, of course, we have Anna coming in. She's here to answer any questions you got. She's very excited for that. I think she's just kind of doing a broad spectrum study to be prepared for any and everything that could come up. Of course, we're going to have our own questions for that. Coming after that is going to be Allie Ray Carpenter. And she is our deaf missionary to Jamaica, so she'll be here to give us an update on that as well. I believe her schedule may not allow her to, but that's what the plan is for right now, so very excited for that. But we love you. Thank you so much. God bless you. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review. You know what it is. Bye now. We love you. Thank you.